The last thing I remembered from my first life was my sister crying beside my hospital bed. Not real crying. Madison had always been good at producing tears when people were watching. She held my hand while my heart monitor screamed and whispered, "Nicole, why would you mix those pills? Why didn't you tell anyone you were struggling?" I couldn't answer. My throat had stopped working. My mother stood behind her, sobbing into my father's shoulder. Dad looked furious instead of heartbroken. "You scared everyone half to death," he said. "Why would you do something so stupid?" I wanted to tell him I hadn't taken anything. I wanted to scream that the only thing I'd eaten that afternoon was the birthday cake Madison had brought me. A white cake with gold frosting, 24 candles, and one ridiculous little plaque across the top that said, "To a long life, little sis." Madison had cut the first slice herself. "Come on," she'd said, smiling. "It's your birthday. You have to eat the first piece." So I had. 3 hours later, I was on the floor. 2 days later, I was dead. And apparently, everyone believed my sister's story. Then I opened my eyes. "Nicole." Madison's voice hit me so hard, I almost fell out of my chair. I stared at her. She was standing in my apartment kitchen, wearing the same cream-colored sweater she'd worn that day, the same pearl earrings, the same soft smile, and in her hands, the cake. For several seconds, I couldn't breathe. Madison laughed. "Okay, that reaction is dramatic, even for you." I looked down. My hands were smooth. No 4 marks. No bruises. No hospital bracelet. My phone lay beside me. I grabbed it. October 18th. My 24th birthday. My stomach twisted. "No," I whispered. Madison tilted her head. "No what?" I looked at her again. This wasn't a dream. I knew that because I remembered everything. The vomiting. The ambulance. The doctors asking what I'd taken. Madison telling them I had been depressed. Mom saying, "Nicole, sweetheart, just tell them the truth." Dad demanding to know where I had hidden the medication. And Madison sitting beside me with those perfect tears. I had died listening to her rewrite my life. Now she was standing 6 feet away, holding the thing that had killed me. "Nicole." I forced my fingers to loosen around the phone. "Sorry. You look like you saw a ghost." "I kinda did." She smiled. "Well, happy birthday anyway." She placed the cake on the counter. My heart started beating faster. "Custom order," she said. "Vanilla almond. Your favorite." It wasn't my favorite. Chocolate was my favorite. Madison knew that. She had known it since we were kids. That should have bothered me the first time. Back then, I had just laughed and eaten it because she said the bakery had gotten confused. Now, every little detail felt like a warning I had somehow ignored. Madison pulled open a drawer. "Where do you keep your cake knife?" I stood. "I'll do it later." She glanced over her shoulder. "What?" I said, "I'll cut it later. But I want to see you try it." There it was. Small. Too small for anyone else to notice. The edge in her voice. I smiled. "Why?" Madison blinked. "Because I bought it for you." So I want to know if you like it." "I'm sure it's great." She stared at me for half a second too long. Then she laughed. "You're being weird." Birthday privilege. Before she could answer, the front door opened. Mom walked in carrying flowers, followed by Dad. "Birthday girl." Mom called. I looked at them and felt something cold settle in my chest. In my first life, I had spent hours wondering why they hadn't believed me. Why neither of them had asked whether Madison might be lying. Why my father had looked at me like I'd embarrassed him even while I was dying. Now I understood something I hadn't before. People didn't suddenly become cruel in a hospital room. They simply showed you which person they had always chosen. Mom hugged me. 24. I can't believe it. Dad handed me an envelope. "Don't spend it all in one place." Madison rolled her eyes. "Dad, she has a job." And yet she still somehow complains about rent. I complained once, I said. He laughed like I'd made a joke. Madison tapped the cake box. I was just trying to get her to eat some. Mom smiled. Oh, cut it now. My eyes moved to Madison. She was watching me. Not Mom. Not Dad. Me. Waiting. Last time, this was where I had given in. I had cut the cake. Madison had handed me the first slice. I had taken 3 bites while everyone talked. This time I reached for the knife. Madison visibly relaxed. I almost smiled. I cut 4 slices. 1 for Mom. 1 for Dad. 1 for Madison. 1 for me. Then I pushed Madison's slice toward her. Birthday tradition. Her hand stopped. What? You made it happen, I said. You should take the first bite. Mom laughed. That's not a tradition. It is now. Madison looked at the slice, then at me. I already ate. So, I'm full. 1 bite. Her smile tightened. Nicole, seriously? What? You're acting strange. Dad sighed. Can we not turn cake into an argument? I'm not arguing. I picked up Madison's fork. Here. She stepped back. Just 1 step. But I saw it. My entire body went cold. There it was. Proof before proof. She knew. Madison recovered quickly. I'm avoiding sugar. I stared at her. You brought a 3-pound cake. For you. And you can't eat 1 bite. Mom gave me a warning look. Nicole. I smiled and put the fork down. Relax. I'm kidding. Madison let out a breath. Very softly. Nobody else noticed. I did. Then I picked up my own slice. Madison's eyes dropped to it. I raised the fork. Her shoulders loosened. I brought the bite toward my mouth. Then my phone rang. I set the fork down. Sorry, work. Madison frowned. On your birthday? Corporate America. I walked into my bedroom and locked the door. My hands started shaking immediately. I leaned against the wall and covered my mouth. It was real. She knew what was in that cake. Maybe not every chemical. Maybe not every consequence. But she knew I shouldn't eat it. I looked at my phone. There had been no call. I had triggered the ringtone myself. I opened my browser and searched for emergency veterinary toxicology services nearby. Then I stopped. I couldn't just poison an animal to prove something. In my first life, I had been too trusting. I wasn't going to become cruel in my second. So I changed the search. Food toxicology lab, independent testing, emergency, chemical screening. I found a private lab outside Seattle that handled contaminated food samples. Then I found an animal rescue clinic I had donated to once after college. A plan started forming. Not because I needed another victim, because I needed evidence. When I came back out, Madison was packing the cake. I stopped. What are you doing? She looked up too quickly, putting it away. At my apartment. I figured you weren't eating it. I never said that. You disappeared. For 2 minutes. She shrugged. Whatever. I'll take it home so it doesn't go to waste. I walked over and put my hand on the box. No. Madison stared at me. What? It was my birthday gift. Yes. So I'm keeping it. Her fingers stayed on the box. For a moment, neither of us moved. Dad looked over. Everything okay? Madison released it. Of course. I smiled. Perfect. She smiled back, but now I could see it. She was nervous. Not annoyed. Not offended. Nervous. Mom and Dad left 20 minutes later. Madison stayed behind. She always did. The first time, I had thought it was because she wanted sister time. Now I knew better. She stood by the door. You'll eat some later? I almost laughed. You're really invested in this cake. I paid $80 for it. That's why. Obviously. I leaned against the counter. Yeah, I'll probably finish it tonight. Her expression changed so fast, most people would have missed it. Relief. Pure relief. Good, she said. Good. I mean, good that you like it. I haven't tasted it. You know what I mean. She grabbed her purse. Text me later. I will. She hesitated. Nicole. Yeah. Happy birthday. I smiled. Thanks, Madison. The second the door shut, I locked it. Then I took pictures of everything. The cake, the box, the bakery label, the receipt taped underneath, the knife, every slice. I put on gloves. I sealed 2 pieces in separate food containers. Then I noticed something. One corner of the bakery label had been peeled back. Underneath, it was another sticker. I carefully lifted the top label. The original order name wasn't Madison Reed. It was someone else. E. Carter. I photographed that too. Then I called the bakery. Hi, said. I received one of your cakes today, and I think there may have been a mix-up. The woman on the phone asked for the order number. I read it. There was a pause. That's strange. What? This cake wasn't ordered under your name. I know. It was prepaid online. By Madison Reed? Another pause. No. My grip tightened around the phone. Who paid for it? I'm sorry. I can't provide customer payment details. Can you tell me when it was ordered? 3 days ago. Was it customized? Yes. With a message to a long life, little sis. The woman went quiet. Then she said, Actually, no. I stopped breathing. What did the original message say? I probably shouldn't. Please. Another pause. Then, it said, Happy 40th, Evan. I stared at the cake. So my sister didn't order this cake. I can't tell you who changed the order, but the pickup notes show that someone requested a new plaque and a box replacement this morning. Who picked it up? I'm sorry. Do you have cameras? Yes. Don't delete anything from today. The woman's tone changed. Ma'am, is there a problem? I don't know yet. I ended the call. Then I drove straight to the testing lab. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't call Madison. I didn't accuse anyone. That had been my mistake in my first life. I had always believed that if something felt wrong, the right thing to do was confront the person directly. But confrontation gives liars time. Evidence gives them less. The lab technician, a woman named Dr. Hannah Brooks, looked at the containers I brought. What exactly are you concerned about? Possible contamination. Accidental. I don't think so. Her eyes lifted to mine. Do you have symptoms? No. Did anyone consume it? No. That answer felt like winning something. She nodded. We can run a broad toxicology panel, but it won't identify every possible substance. Do it. It's expensive. I don't care. She gave me the paperwork. As I signed, my phone buzzed. Madison, did you eat the cake yet? I stared at the message. Then another came. Mom said, you barely touched it earlier. Then, don't tell me my $80 went to waste, faced with tears of joy. I smiled. For the first time since waking up, I actually smiled. I typed back. Finished almost all of it. It was amazing. The typing bubble appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, told you you'd like it red heart. I took a screenshot. Dr. Brooks looked at me. Someone you know. My sister. She glanced at the cake, then back at me. I put the phone away. When will you have preliminary results? Tomorrow morning if we rush it. Rush it. I left one sample with her and took the second with me. I drove next to Harbor Hope Animal Rescue, not to feed the cake to anything, but because their director, Claire Mendoza, had helped me once with chain of custody storage for donated food after a contamination scare at a fundraiser. Claire met me at the front desk. Nicole, haven't seen you in forever. I need a favor. She looked at the container in my hand. That sounds ominous. I need this refrigerated, sealed, and logged with the time I gave it to you. She stared at me. What is it? Birthday cake. Okay, that somehow made this weirder. I handed her the container. Please don't let anyone or any animal eat it. Her expression sharpened. Nicole, what's going on? I think someone tried to poison me. She stopped smiling. Before she could answer, my phone rang. Madison again. I declined it. She called a second time, then a third. Claire looked at the screen. Your sister. Yeah. Are you going to answer? I looked through the glass door at the parking lot. A familiar white Mercedes had just turned in. Madison's car. My heartbeat slowed instead of speeding up. Interesting. She had gone from asking whether I ate the cake to showing up wherever I was. Claire followed my gaze. Is that her? Yes. Madison parked badly and got out before the engine had fully stopped. She walked straight toward the entrance. Claire lowered her voice. What do you want me to do? I slid the sealed cake container across the counter. Put this somewhere she can't reach. Claire picked it up. And you? I looked at my sister coming through the door. Then I smiled. I'm going to find out how scared she really is. Madison pushed through the rescue center doors like she owned the place. Her eyes found me immediately. Then they moved to Claire, then to the counter. She was looking for the cake. Nicole. I smiled. Hey. She stopped in front of me. What are you doing here? Claire glanced between us. Madison gave her a polite smile. I'm her sister. Claire didn't smile back. I gathered that. Madison looked at me again. You said you were going home. No, I didn't. You implied it. I said I'd text you later. Her jaw tightened. Why are you at an animal shelter? Rescue center. Fine. Rescue center. I shrugged. I like animals. Since when? Claire folded her arms. Most people do. Madison ignored her. Nicole, can we talk outside? We're talking now. Privately. I'm comfortable here. She laughed, but it sounded forced. Okay, what is this? What is what? You're acting strange. You've said that 3 times today. Because you are. I tilted my head. Maybe dying changes a person. Madison froze. Not dramatically. Just enough. Her eyes sharpened. What? I let the silence sit between us. Then I smiled. Figure of speech. She stared at me. Claire looked confused, but said nothing. Madison stepped closer. Did you bring the cake here? There it was. No small talk. No pretending anymore. I raised an eyebrow. Why? Because I saw the box in your car. That was a lie. The cake had been inside an insulated grocery bag. You were watching my car. I drove past. You drove past an animal rescue center on the other side of town. I was nearby. Doing what? Madison's face changed. Just for a second, the mask slipped. Why are you interrogating me? I'm not. You are. You asked where my cake was. I asked why you care. Because I bought it. No, you didn't. Silence. Claire looked at Madison. Madison looked at me. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone. The bakery said the cake was originally ordered for someone named Evan Carter. Her face barely moved, but she swallowed. I noticed. They must have mixed up the order. That's what I thought. Okay then. But then they told me somebody changed the plaque and replaced the box this morning. Madison gave a short laugh. And you told me you custom ordered it. I did. Did you? Yes. Then why was somebody else's name on the original label? I don't know. You picked it up. Nicole, bakeries make mistakes every day. Sure. I looked at Claire. People also lie every day. Madison's voice dropped. What exactly are you accusing me of? Nothing. You're obviously accusing me of something. I'm asking questions. You never ask questions like this. That sentence almost made me laugh. Because she was right. The old Nicole didn't. The old Nicole accepted explanations. The old Nicole apologized when other people got uncomfortable. The old Nicole was dead. I guess I'm trying something new. Madison took another step closer. Where is the cake? Claire moved slightly between us. Madison noticed. Her expression hardened. What? Claire said calmly. You're getting pretty intense over dessert. This is a family issue. Then maybe handle it like family. Madison's eyes narrowed. Who are you? Claire Mendoza, director. And why are you involved? Claire didn't answer. I did. She's helping me. With what? I smiled. Storage. Madison went still. For what? A cake. Nicole. What? Stop playing games. I'm not playing. Yes, you are. Her voice rose enough that a volunteer at the back desk looked over. Madison lowered it again. I came here because I was worried about you. You tracked me across town because you were worried. You weren't answering. You called 3 times in under a minute. Because you've been acting unstable all day. There it was. That word. Unstable. My stomach twisted. In my first life, she had used the same word with the doctors. Nicole's been unstable lately. Nicole's been under pressure. Nicole doesn't always tell us when she's struggling. She had planted the story before I was even dead. I looked at her. What makes me unstable? She blinked. I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? You're paranoid. About? The cake. I never said I was paranoid about the cake. You called the bakery. That means I'm paranoid. You followed up on a stupid label. You followed me to an animal rescue center. Her mouth shut. Claire looked away, hiding a smile. Madison exhaled through her nose. Fine. You want the truth. I'd love that. I didn't order the cake directly. I waited. She continued. A friend helped me. What friend? Someone from work. Name. Why does that matter? Because you said you ordered it. I paid them back. Who? Madison rolled her eyes. Evan. My pulse changed. Evan Carter? Yes. You know him. Barely. You know him well enough to use his cake order? It was a mix-up. That's not what you just said. She stared at me. I let her sit in it. First, bakery mistake. Then friend helped. Then Evan. Every answer created another problem. Madison crossed her arms. This is ridiculous. I agree. Then give me the cake and I'll take it back to the bakery. No. Her head snapped toward me. What? I'm keeping it. Why? It's mine. You said you ate almost all of it. I lied. The words landed harder than I expected. Madison's face emptied. What? I lied in the text. She stared at me. Why would you do that? To see what you'd say. Her voice became very quiet. What's that supposed to mean? It means you seemed relieved. I was happy you liked my gift. The gift you didn't order. Nicole. I pulled out my phone again. You texted me 4 minutes after I left my apartment. So. Then you called me 3 times. So. Then you showed up here. Madison laughed. This is insane. Maybe. You think I put something in the cake. I hadn't said it. She had. Claire's expression changed. Madison realized it too late. I looked directly at her. That's an interesting question. Her face reddened. You're twisting my words. No, I'm listening to them. You know what? Fine. She grabbed her purse. I'm done. I stepped aside. Nobody's stopping you. She took 2 steps toward the door, then stopped, turned. If you really think something's wrong with that cake, don't give it to the animals. Claire answered before I could. We wouldn't. Madison looked at her. Good. Then she looked at me. Because if something happens, that's on you. I almost smiled. There it was again. Not concerned for me. Not, Nicole, are you okay? Not, let's call the bakery. Her first concern was liability. I said, nothing's going to happen. Madison held my gaze for a long moment. Then she left. Claire waited until the Mercedes disappeared. Okay. I looked at her. Okay, what? I officially believe you. You didn't before? I believed you were scared. That's not the same thing. No. She nodded toward the door. But that woman came in here acting like we had the launch codes because of a cake. I laughed once. It felt strange. Claire lowered her voice. Do you want to call the police? Not yet. Why not? Because right now I have suspicion. You said there's a lab test. Preliminary results tomorrow. And if it's positive, then I call. Claire studied me. You're very calm. I've already panicked once. She didn't understand. That was fine. I wasn't ready to explain something impossible. My phone buzzed. Mom. I answered. Hey. What happened with your sister? I looked at the clock. Madison worked fast. What did she tell you? That you accused her of trying to poison you. I never said that. Nicole. Ask her exactly what I said. Mom sighed. This is what I mean. Why are you doing this? Doing what? Turning everything into a confrontation. I laughed softly. Mom, she came to find me. She was worried. She was worried about a cake. She was worried about you. Did she tell you I called a lab? Silence. That answered my question. Mom. She said you were having food tested. Right. Why would you do that? Because I wanted to know what was in it. It's a bakery cake. Then the test should be boring. She sighed again. You're scaring your sister. That sentence hit me harder than it should have. Not because it surprised me, because it didn't. Mom, did Madison ever tell you I was depressed? Another pause. What does that have to do with anything? Did she? Nicole. Before today. I don't know. Think. Mom became defensive. She's mentioned you've been under stress. When? I don't keep records. How long ago? Why are you interrogating me? There it was again. Apparently questions were only acceptable when Madison asked them. I sat down. Mom, did she ever tell you I take medication? No. Too fast. I went quiet. Mom said what? You answered before I finished. Because this is ridiculous. Did she? No. Are you sure? Yes. I wrote it down. Time. Date. Exact wording. Nicole, what are you doing? Nothing. You sound strange. Unstable. Silence. Then I didn't say that. No. Madison did. Mom's tone softened. She loves you. I looked at the front door. Does she? Of course she does. Then why didn't she eat the cake? Mom didn't answer. I ended the call. An hour later, I was back home. I didn't sleep. I made a timeline instead. 3 days before birthday. Cake originally ordered. Birthday morning, order modified. 12:20 p.m., Madison brought cake. 12:31 p.m., refused to eat it. 1:05 p.m., tried to take it home. 1:42 p.m., asked if I ate it. 2:16 p.m., followed me to Harbor Hope. The more I wrote, the less it looked like paranoia. At 9:14 p.m., another text came from Madison. I'm sorry we fought. I stared at it. Then, I really was just trying to do something nice. Another. You know I'd never hurt you, right? I didn't answer. 5 minutes later, Nicole? Then, can you at least tell me where the cake is? I smiled. That was the one. I took a screenshot. Then I typed. Why do you care where it is? The typing bubble appeared. Stopped. Appeared again. Finally, because I don't want you embarrassing me by making some stupid accusation. I replied, I haven't accused you of anything. No response. At 10:03 p.m., my father called. I let it ring. At 10:08, Mom called. I ignored that too. At 10:22, Madison sent one final message. You're going to regret making this bigger than it is. I saved it. Then I turned off the lights and lay down. I didn't sleep much. At 6:48 the next morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. I sat up immediately. Hello. Nicole Reed. Yes. This is Dr. Brooks from North Point Toxicology. My mouth went dry. We have your preliminary screening. I gripped the blanket, and there was a pause. We found something. I closed my eyes. What? A prescription sedative and a cardiac medication. My heart started pounding. Those shouldn't be in cake. No. What amount? Enough that I need to ask you this again. Her voice became very serious. Did anyone eat it? No. Are you certain? Yes. Good. I stared at the wall. What would have happened if I had? Dr. Brooks hesitated. Depending on your weight, health, and how much you consumed, you could have lost consciousness. I stopped breathing. And more than that? Yes. How much more? Another pause. Then she said, Nicole, this could have killed you. I didn't cry. I thought I would. Instead, I looked at Madison's last message. You're going to regret making this bigger than it is. I whispered, No. Then I opened my contacts. This time, I wasn't calling my mother. I was calling a lawyer. The lawyer's name was Daniel Mercer. He didn't ask whether I was overreacting. That alone made me trust him more than my family. He listened while I explained the cake, Madison's messages, the bakery, and the toxicology report. When I finished, he said, First, don't confront your sister again. I wasn't planning to. Second, send me copies of everything. Copie, Nicole. Keep the originals somewhere safe. Already doing that. Good. Third, we need to talk about motive. I went quiet. Daniel continued. Has your sister ever threatened you? No. Does she benefit financially if you die? The question hit me harder than the lab results. I don't know. You should. My grandmother left me a trust. How much? I hesitated. About $4 million when she died. Investments pushed it higher. And Madison? She received less. How much less? About $600,000. Daniel whistled softly. That difference matters. My grandmother had reasons. I'm sure she did. Who receives your trust if you die? I assumed my parents. Never assume anything involving 7 figures. He told me to bring every estate document I had. 20 minutes later, I was pulling an old gray folder from the back of my closet. Grandma Evelyn had created the trust when I was 19. She had always been closer to me than Madison. Not because I was her favorite, because Madison only called when she wanted something. I found the beneficiaries section. Then my stomach dropped. If I died unmarried and without children, control of the remaining assets transferred to a family holding trust. The trustee listed beneath it was my father, but there was an amendment, signed 2 years later. Successor, trustee, Madison Reed. I called Daniel back. I found something. How bad? My sister gets control. Ownership. Not directly. Control can be enough. I scanned the documents and sent them. He called 10 minutes later. Nicole, where did this amendment come from? I don't remember signing it. You didn't. What? It was signed by your grandmother. She was sick by then. When did she die? 6 weeks later. Daniel went silent. Then he asked, "Who handled her paperwork?" "My father." "And who worked in your father's office?" I already knew the answer. Madison. For the first time since waking up, fear turned into something cleaner. Anger. The cake wasn't random. Maybe my death hadn't been about jealousy. Maybe I had been worth more dead than alive. Daniel said, "I'm going to request the complete trust history." "Do it." "There's something else." "What?" "If someone expected your death, they may have asked questions beforehand." "Questions about what?" "Succession, taxes, transfer procedures." I remembered my first life. After I collapsed, Madison had arrived at the hospital before my parents. At the time, I thought she had been worried. Now I remembered what she had asked while she thought I was unconscious. Did she sign anything? I had assumed she meant medical forms. My hands went cold. "Daniel, check whether anyone contacted the trust administrator recently." "I will." My phone buzzed. Madison. I rejected the call. She called again. Then Dad. Then Mom. Finally, a text from Dad appeared. "Family meeting. Tonight, 7 p.m. Be there." I showed Daniel. "Should I go?" "Yes." That surprised me. "But record everything if your state allows it." Washington is two-party consent. Then don't secretly record private conversations. Keep communication in writing where possible, and don't make accusations you can't prove yet. Got it. And Nicole? Yeah. Don't bring the toxicology original. At 7, I walked into my parents' house with nothing but my phone. Madison was already there. Of course she was. Mom sat beside her. Dad stood near the dining table. Nobody said, "Happy birthday" this time. Dad pointed at a chair. "Sit." "I'm fine standing." "Nicole." "What?" "Sit down." "No." Madison shook her head. "See, this is what I've been talking about." I looked at her. "What have you been talking about?" She gave Mom a nervous glance. Mom spoke carefully. "Madison says you've been behaving irrationally." "Because I tested a cake." "Because you followed her around asking bizarre questions." I laughed. "She followed me." Madison threw up her hands. "I was worried." "About me or the cake?" Here we go again. Dad slammed his palm against the table. "Enough." Everyone went quiet. He looked at me. "Did you accuse your sister of poisoning you?" "No." Madison scoffed. "She basically did." "Basically isn't yes." Dad's jaw tightened. "Then what are you saying?" I looked directly at Madison. "I'm saying the cake contained prescription drugs." Nobody moved. Mom blinked. "What?" Madison laughed. Too loudly. "That's insane." "I had it tested." "You're lying." I pulled up the preliminary report on my phone. I didn't hand it over. I simply read the findings. Mom's face drained. Dad stared at Madison. She immediately shook her head. "I didn't do anything." "I didn't say you did." "You're obviously trying to blame me." Again, she accused herself before I did. Dad looked at me. "Where's the cake?" "Safe." "I want to see it." "No." "Nicole, I'm your father. And it's evidence." That word changed the room. Evidence. Madison stood. "You called the police?" "Did I say that?" "You're trying to destroy my life." I stared at her. Interesting choice of words. She stepped toward me. Mom grabbed her arm. "Madison, stop." "No. She's been doing this since yesterday. She's acting completely crazy." There it was. Crazy. Just like the first life. I looked at Mom. "Has she been telling you that for a while?" Mom looked away. Madison snapped. "What is wrong with you?" "Have you?" "I've told Mom you've been stressed." "Have you told her I take pills?" Silence. Dad frowned. What pills? Madison's face changed. Only slightly. But I saw it. I never said that. Mom whispered, Madison. Madison turned. What? Mom looked uncomfortable. You did mention Nicole might be taking something for anxiety. The room went dead silent. I felt my nails dig into my palm. When Mom swallowed. A few weeks ago. Before the cake. Before my birthday. Before there was any reason to explain drugs in my body. Madison stared at Mom like she'd betrayed her. I said maybe. You said she'd been hiding medication, Mom replied. I was worried about her. I laughed. Madison spun toward me. What's funny? You were preparing them. For what? For the explanation. Her face hardened. Dad stepped between us. That's enough. Nobody is accusing anyone of attempted murder in my house. I still haven't accused her. Then stop acting like it. I looked at him. You want me to ignore drugs and food because investigating makes Madison uncomfortable. I want facts. Good. So do I. My phone rang. Daniel. I answered. Nicole. I'm here. We got a response from the trust administrator. My family watched me. I turned on speaker. What did they say? Daniel paused. Someone contacted them 11 days ago. My heart stopped. Who? They won't disclose the full identity without formal process, but the caller asked what happens to your trust if you die before age 30. Mom covered her mouth. Dad's face changed. Madison went completely still. Daniel continued. There's more. The caller knew the exact amendment number naming your successor trustee. I stared at my sister. She was no longer angry. She looked scared. I asked, what exactly did they want to know? Daniel answered slowly, how quickly control of the assets would transfer after your death. Madison grabbed her purse. Dad looked at her. Where are you going? I'm not staying here for this. Madison. She headed for the door. I called after her. 11 days ago. She stopped. I took one step closer. My birthday cake was modified yesterday, but somebody started asking about my death 11 days ago. She turned around. For once, she had no tears. No perfect explanation. Just fury. You think you're so smart now. Mom gasped. Madison. My sister stared at me. Then she smiled. It wasn't her usual smile. It was the one I should have noticed in my first life. You have no idea what you're digging into, Nicole. She walked out. Dad didn't stop her. Neither did I. Because for the first time, Madison had finally made a mistake bigger than the cake. She had admitted there was something to dig into. Madison's threat should have frightened me. Instead, it clarified everything. By 8 the next morning, 3 relatives had called. Aunt Susan went first. Nicole, your mother says you had some kind of episode. I nearly laughed. An episode. She said you accused Madison of trying to kill you. I didn't. Well, Madison says. Did Mom tell you the cake tested positive for prescription drugs? Silence. No. Did she tell you Madison had been telling people I secretly took medication weeks before drugs showed up in food she gave me? Another silence. That sounds complicated. It isn't. I ended the call. My cousin Rachel texted next. Are you okay? Madison says you're having paranoid thoughts. Then Uncle Mark. Your family loves you. Please don't make accusations while you're emotionally unstable. By 9, I understood Madison's plan. She wasn't trying to prove the cake was safe. She was trying to prove I wasn't. Exactly like last time. I forwarded everything to Daniel. His response came immediately. Don't argue with them. Save every message. So I did. Then Madison made her next move. At noon, Mom called. We're having dinner tonight. No. Nicole, please. I did family dinner yesterday. This is different. How? Your father wants everyone to calm down. That meant Madison wanted an audience. Who's coming? Mom hesitated. Just family. Names. Nicole. Names, Mom. She sighed. Aunt Susan. Mark. Rachel. Your father. Madison. I smiled. Perfect. I'll be there. Daniel hated the idea. She's building witnesses, he said. So am I. To what? To her story falling apart. Be careful. I will. When I arrived at 7, everyone was already seated. Madison wore no makeup. Her eyes were red. Nice touch. She stood when I entered. Nicole, I'm glad you came. I almost applauded. Instead, I sat across from her. Dad cleared his throat. We're going to have a civilized conversation. Great. Aunt Susan reached for my hand. I moved it before she could touch me. Sweetheart, we're worried. About what? Madison answered. You. I looked at her. Why? Her voice softened. You haven't been yourself. Since when? A while. Be specific. She sighed. This isn't a courtroom. No. In court, you'd have to answer. Dad frowned. Nicole. I ignored him. Madison looked around the table. See what I mean? Rachel shifted uncomfortably. Madison continued. She's suspicious of everyone. She thinks people are plotting against her. Everyone. You accused me. No, I didn't. You keep saying that. Because it's true. You had my birthday gift chemically tested. And that isn't normal. Neither are heart medications in frosting. Aunt Susan's head snapped toward Madison. What? Madison's face tightened. Nicole claims the lab found something. Claims. I took out my phone. The final report arrived this afternoon. Dad sat forward. You didn't tell me. You didn't ask. I placed printed copies on the table. Not the original. Copies. Daniel had taught me quickly. Rachel picked one up. What is propranolol? A beta blocker, I said. And zolpidem? A sedative. Madison shook her head. This proves nothing. You're right. She looked surprised. I continued. It proves the cake was contaminated. It doesn't prove who did it. Dad relaxed slightly. Madison didn't. Because she knew I wasn't finished. I looked at her. You said yesterday that Evan Carter helped you order it. Yes. I called Evan. Her face changed. Mom whispered, Who's Evan? A man Madison claimed helped with my cake. Madison leaned forward. You called someone from my office? No. What? Because Evan Carter doesn't work with you. She went silent. He lives in Tacoma, I continued. He ordered a 40th birthday cake for himself. The bakery accidentally prepared it a day early. Someone called, paid cash to take that cake, replace the box, and change the plaque. Madison's fingers tightened around her napkin. Aunt Susan looked at her. Did you do that? No. Then why did you say you knew him? I panicked because Nicole was interrogating me. So you invented a person you supposedly knew? I didn't invent him. His name was on the label. Exactly. I smiled. Madison realized it. Too late. I leaned back. You told me you barely knew Evan before I ever told you his full name. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Rachel slowly put down the report. How did you know his name? Madison stood. This is ridiculous. I stayed seated. Sit down. Don't tell me what to do. Then leave. Her eyes flashed. This is my family too. Then answer. Mom finally spoke. Madison, honey, just explain it. That irritated her more than anything I had said. I don't owe her an explanation. Dad stood. You owe me one. Madison stared at him. For the first time, Dad wasn't standing between us. He was looking directly at her. Did you alter that cake? No. Did you know it was contaminated? No. Then why have you been telling people Nicole takes medication? Madison looked at Mom. You told him. Mom's face fell, and there it was. Not denial, anger that Mom had talked. I watched Dad understand it too. Madison recovered. I was concerned. Concerned about what? I asked. She turned on me. You've always had issues. I laughed once. What issues? You get obsessive. About everything. Give me one example. She hesitated. I pushed. One. You've been depressed. When? After college. I moved to Seattle for a job. You were lonely. Who told you? You did. No, I didn't. You don't remember everything you say. That sentence was deliberate. I recognized the strategy. Make my memory the problem. Make every contradiction evidence that I couldn't trust myself. Madison leaned toward the table. You called me crying last month. No. Yes, you did. What date? What? What date did I call? I don't remember. Morning or evening? Nicole, stop. What did I say? You said you couldn't handle things. What things? Work. Life. Which project at work? Her eyes hardened. This is exactly what I mean. I took out my phone. I downloaded my call history. Madison froze. I haven't called you in 7 weeks. Nobody spoke. I continued. You called me 6 times. I slid the phone toward Dad. So either my phone company is part of my mental breakdown or Madison is lying. Madison slapped the phone off the table. It hit the hardwood. Mom screamed. Dad shouted, Madison. My sister stared at me, breathing hard. I slowly stood. Thank you. Her expression shifted. For what? I bent down and picked up my phone. The screen was cracked. Still recording video. Not secretly. Before dinner, I had placed it on the table and told everyone I wanted the conversation documented. Everyone had agreed after Dad insisted it would keep things civil. Madison had forgotten. I turned the screen toward her. You just destroyed property because I showed Dad my call history. I didn't mean. And you lied about a call that never happened. I was confused. You knew Evan's name. Stop. You asked about my trust before my birthday. I didn't. The shout shook the room. I went silent. So did everyone else. Madison realized what I had said. Her face drained. I hadn't claimed she made the call. I had only mentioned it. Yet, she had responded like I had accused her personally. Dad spoke quietly. How do you know about the trust inquiry? Madison stared at him. What? I never told you. She looked at Mom. Mom shook her head. I didn't either. Madison backed away from the table. Then her phone buzzed. She looked down. Whatever she saw terrified her. She grabbed the phone and headed toward the hallway. I stepped sideways. Who is it? Move. Madison. I said move. Dad came around the table. Give me the phone. Her head snapped toward him. No. Who contacted you? None of your business. Dad held out his hand. Madison. She backed away. Then the phone buzzed again. The screen lit up. I couldn't see the whole message, but I saw enough. A contact saved only as J, and 6 words beneath it. You said Nicole would be dead. Madison looked up. She knew I had seen it. So did Dad. Nobody moved. Then Madison did something none of us expected. She turned and ran. Madison made it halfway to the front door before Dad caught her arm. Stop. Let go of me. Who is Jay? I said, let go. She jerked free hard enough to knock over a chair. Mom stood frozen beside the table. Aunt Susan looked like she wanted to disappear. Rachel had stopped pretending this was a family misunderstanding. Dad pointed at Madison's phone. Show me the message. No. Madison. No. Her voice cracked. For once, it wasn't performance. She was scared. I stayed where I was. That mattered. The old me would have chased her, demanded answers, begged everyone to finally believe me. This time, I let the silence work. Dad spoke first. If somebody just texted you that Nicole was supposed to be dead, you are going to explain it. Madison's face twisted. You all think I did this. No, Mom said quickly. Nobody said that. I looked at her. Mom. She flinched. Madison laughed bitterly. See, Nicole's already decided. I haven't. You keep saying that like it makes you innocent. I'm not the one who needs to prove innocence. Her eyes snapped to mine. Dad held out his hand again. The phone. Madison stepped backward. Then she made a mistake. She unlocked it, probably to delete the message. Dad lunged forward. She pulled away. The phone slipped from her hand and hit the floor. Rachel was closest. She picked it up. Madison screamed, "Don't touch that!" Everyone froze. Rachel looked at the screen, then at me. Nicole. What? Her face had gone pale. There are more messages. Madison rushed toward her. Dad blocked her. Read them. Dad, no. Read them. Rachel swallowed. From Jay. She looked at the phone again. Yesterday. Why is she still texting people? My skin went cold. Rachel continued. Another one says, "You told me she ate it." Mom covered her mouth. Madison shook her head violently. You don't understand. Dad's voice dropped. Then explain. I can't. Can't or won't. It's not what it looks like. That sentence almost made me laugh. It was the sentence guilty people always used when the truth finally looked exactly like itself. Rachel scrolled. There's one from this morning. What does it say? I asked. She read slowly. If the test comes back, we have a bigger problem than your sister. Aunt Susan stood. I'm leaving. Dad looked at her. No. She blinked. This is police territory, Robert. For once, we agree. Madison's head snapped toward him. You wouldn't. Dad pulled out his phone. Try me. She grabbed his wrist. Dad, please. That word changed his expression. Not because he softened, because Madison almost never begged. What did you do? He asked. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't poison her. Then who is Jay? I can't tell you. Why? Because you'll make everything worse. I finally spoke. For who? Madison looked at me. I stepped closer. For me? She said nothing. For you? Nothing. For whoever Jay is? Her silence answered enough. Dad started dialing. Madison panicked. Wait. He stopped. She looked around the room, then at me. I'll talk. I crossed my arms. Go ahead. Not with everyone here. No. Nicole. You built your story in front of everyone. You can explain it in front of everyone. Her eyes narrowed. I was trying to protect this family. Dad laughed once. It sounded ugly. From Nicole. No. Then from what? Madison swallowed. From the company. That caught me off guard. Dad's expression changed too. What about the company? Madison sat down slowly. For the first time all night, she looked tired instead of dramatic. There are problems. Dad stared at her. What problems? Cash flow. His face hardened. We don't have cash flow problems. We do now. The room went silent. I remembered Daniel's words. Control can be enough. Dad moved closer. What did you do? Madison looked down. I moved money. How much? She didn't answer. How much? Mom jumped. Madison whispered, 2.3. Dad stared. Million. She nodded. Mom sat down like her legs had failed. Dad's voice became dangerously calm. Where? I thought I could put it back. Where did it go? Private loans. Investments. You used company funds. I used accounts I could access. That wasn't my question. Madison looked at me. That told me everything before she spoke. Some transfers were under Nicole's authorization. My stomach dropped. What? You had signing authority. I never approved anything. I copied it. Dad turned white. You forged your sister's signature. I was going to fix it. Rachel whispered, "Oh my God." I stepped toward Madison. How long? Nicole, how long have you been using my name? She looked away. 8 months. 8 months. Suddenly, the trust wasn't the whole motive. If Madison had stolen company money using my authorization, then my death would do more than give her access to my trust. It would leave me looking guilty. Dead people don't dispute signatures. Dead people don't ask questions. Dead people make convenient scapegoats. Dad seemed to reach the same conclusion. You were going to put the theft on her. Madison stood. No. If she died, those transfers would lead back to Nicole. I didn't plan that. I stared at her. Then why were you asking about my trust? I wasn't. Why did Jay say I was supposed to be dead? I don't know. Dad's patience broke. He slammed his hand on the table. Stop lying. Madison burst into tears. Mom moved toward her. I held up a hand. Don't. Mom looked at me. She's falling apart. So did I. The words came out colder than I expected. Mom stopped. I looked at Dad. You wanted facts yesterday. He said nothing. Here they are. I pulled up an email Daniel had sent an hour earlier. He found 6 transfers made using my digital authorization. Dad took the phone. His face changed as he read. These went through our internal account. Yes. Madison wiped her face. I can explain. Dad looked up. Tomorrow morning, your access is frozen. Her head jerked up. What? You're done at Reed Holdings. Dad, you don't enter the office. You don't contact accounting. You don't access company email. You can't do that. I own the company, and I built half the client network. You stole from it. Madison turned on me. This is what you wanted. I almost smiled. No, you wanted me out. No, Madison. I wanted to stay alive. She looked like I had slapped her. Dad turned to me. You'll come in tomorrow. We need to review every account under your name. I shook my head. No. What? I'm not coming back. His expression hardened. Nicole, this isn't the time for drama. There it is. What? The assumption that I'll clean it up. I'm asking you to help protect the company. The company you threatened to choose over me yesterday. He said nothing. I continued. I resigned. Mom stood. You what? I emailed HR before I came here. Dad stared at me. You can't just walk away. I can. You're a shareholder. I said I resigned from my job, not my ownership. Madison laughed bitterly. So now you get to watch us all burn? I looked at her. No. I picked up my bag. You started the fire. Dad stepped in front of me. Where are you going? To Daniel's office. At this hour? Yes. Why? I looked at Madison. Because I'm filing a formal fraud complaint. Mom gasped. Nicole, please. I turned to her. You asked me to calm down. Because I didn't know. Now you do. She started crying. Can't we handle this privately? No. Think about what this will do to your sister. I stared at her for several seconds. Then I asked the question I had wanted to ask in my first life. Did any of you think about what she was doing to me? Nobody answered. I nodded. That's what I thought. Madison's tears disappeared. She looked at me with pure hatred. You think you've won. This isn't a game. You always wanted Grandma's money and Dad's respect. I laughed. You tried to kill me, steal from the company, and frame me for it. And you still think this is sibling rivalry. I didn't try to kill you. Everyone froze. I held her gaze. Then tell me who did. Her face changed. For 1 second, I thought she might finally say it. Instead, she whispered, You really don't know who Jay is? No. Madison smiled, and somehow that scared me more than her panic had. Then you should ask Mom. I turned. Mom had gone, completely white. Mom looked like she might faint. Dad turned toward her. Linda. She didn't answer. Madison gave a small, bitter laugh. Go ahead, Mom. Stop. That was the first thing Mom said. Not, I don't know who Jay is. Not, Madison is lying. Just stop. I felt something settle in my chest. Who is Jay? Mom looked at me. Nicole, this isn't the place. I almost laughed. We're standing in your dining room, talking about forged signatures and poisoned cake. Where exactly is the right place? Dad's voice hardened. Linda, answer her. Mom sat down. Her hands were trembling. His name is Julian Cross. Madison looked away. I repeated it. Julian Cross. I knew the name. Not personally. Everyone in Seattle business circles knew it. Cross Capital. Private lending. Distressed acquisitions. The kind of company people called when banks stopped returning calls. Dad stared at Mom. How do you know Julian Cross? She closed her eyes. Madison came to me 6 months ago. Madison snapped, Mom. You wanted me involved, Mom said. Now I'm involved. Dad stepped closer. What did she tell you? That she'd made a bad investment. Madison laughed bitterly. That's a nice way to put it. Mom continued. She borrowed privately. How much? I asked. 800,000 at first. My stomach turned. And then, she couldn't repay it. Dad stared at Madison. You borrowed from Cross without telling me. I was fixing something. You stole $2 million trying to fix 800,000. It got bigger. How? Madison shouted. Because interest exists, Dad. Nobody spoke. She ran both hands through her hair. I had a chance to buy into a development project. It was supposed to triple. And it failed, I said. She glared at me. Yes. Mom whispered. Julian started threatening legal action. Dad scoffed. Then you should have come to me. Madison looked at him. And say what? That your perfect daughter blew almost $1 million. Dad's expression hardened. You were never perfect. That hurt her. I could tell. Madison looked away. Mom continued. Julian agreed to wait if Madison could provide stronger collateral. I already knew where this was going. My trust. Mom didn't answer. Mom. Yes. The word hit harder than I expected. Dad turned toward her. You knew she was using Nicole's trust. I knew she wanted to. You let her. I told her no. Madison laughed. You told me not to get caught. Mom stood. That is not what I said. It's exactly what you said. I said if your father discovered the debt, it would destroy him. And then you helped me hide it. Mom's face crumpled. Dad stared between them. How much did you know? Mom looked at him. About the loans? Most of it. About the forged transfers? No. Madison muttered. That's convenient. What about the cake? I asked. Mom looked at me immediately. No. Too immediate. Too frightened. I walked closer. Did you know Madison was planning to hurt me? No. Did you know Julian wanted me dead? No. Dad said, Linda. I didn't. She looked at me. I swear. For once, I believed she was terrified. That didn't mean she was innocent. I asked, "Why did Madison tell you I was taking medication?" Mom looked confused. She said you were. When? A few weeks ago. Why didn't you ask me? Her face changed. I thought you'd be embarrassed. I laughed softly. That was easier than checking. Nicole. No. Answer. Mom looked down. Yes. There it was. Not murder. Cowardice. Sometimes cowardice did almost as much damage. Madison leaned against the table. You still don't get it. I looked at her. What don't I get? Julian didn't need me to kill you. Dad frowned. What does that mean? Madison stared at me. He needed you, declared incapable. The room went silent. I felt cold. Incapable of what? Managing the trust. Daniel had mentioned the structure. If I became legally incapacitated, temporary control could pass to the successor trustee, Madison. I looked at Mom. That's why the medication story started. Mom covered her mouth. Madison said nothing. I stepped closer. You weren't originally planning to kill me. No. Her answer came quietly. What were you planning? She swallowed. Make you sick. Dad stared at her. Mom started crying again. I didn't move. How sick? Enough to put you in the hospital. For how long? I don't know. Wrong answer. I don't know. Her voice cracked. Julian said if there was medical evidence you were abusing medication, we could petition for emergency control of the trust. I stared at her. And the cake? It was supposed to knock you out. Supposed to? Yes. The lab said it could kill me. Madison shook her head. That wasn't what I was told. By Julian? Yes. Mom whispered. Oh my God. I looked at her. Don't do that. What? Don't act shocked now. You helped build the lie. I didn't know about the cake. You knew she wanted control of my money. I was trying to protect both of you. I laughed. From what? From your father finding out. Dad looked at her. So protecting me meant letting one daughter steal from the other? Mom had no answer. Madison suddenly grabbed her phone from Rachel. Dad moved, but I stopped him. Let her. Madison stared at me. You want answers? Yes. Fine. She opened her messages, then held the phone out. Read. I took it. There were dozens of texts with Julian. Some were financial. Some were threats. Then I found one from 2 weeks ago. If Nicole becomes medically unreliable, the successor clause becomes useful. Another. You need a documented pattern before the birthday. Start with family. My skin crawled. That was the medication story. I scrolled farther, then found the message from 3 days ago. Cake pickup handled. Dose is enough to create a hospitalization. Don't improvise. I looked at Madison. You knew. I knew about the sedative and the cardiac medication. Her face changed. No. I looked down again. There was another message. From yesterday. Sent after I told her I'd eaten the cake. She says she finished it. Julian replied. Then why is she still walking around? Madison whispered. That's when I realized. Realized what? That he changed it. Dad frowned. Changed what? The dose. Madison looked at me. I went to the rescue center because I thought if you still had the cake, I could get it back before anyone tested it. I stared at her. Not because you wanted to save me. Her eyes filled. I thought you'd already eaten it. Exactly. That answer told me everything I needed. You thought I was already dying. She said nothing. And you still went after the evidence. Nicole. No. I handed the phone to Dad. You don't get to turn this into a confession that makes you look better. She looked furious. I'm telling you the truth. Now, what does that mean? It means you only started telling the truth after every lie failed. Her face hardened. Dad looked through Julian's messages. Then he stopped. What is this? Madison went still. I looked over his shoulder. A message from Julian, sent that afternoon. If Nicole reports the financial transfers, your mother's signature becomes part of the investigation too. Dad slowly turned toward Mom. What signature? Mom started shaking her head. Robert. What signature? Madison whispered, the second loan. Dad stared at his wife. You signed for her. Mom began crying. I thought we had time. How much? She couldn't answer. Madison did. 1.5 million. Dad stepped back like she'd struck him. I looked at Mom. So you didn't just know. She stared at me. You financed it. I was trying to keep the family together. No. I shook my head. You were trying to keep the truth hidden. My phone rang. Daniel. I answered. Tell me you're somewhere safe. I'm at my parents' house. Leave. My stomach tightened. Why? Julian Cross knows you had the cake tested. I looked at Madison. Her face went pale. Daniel continued. We contacted his firm about the trust inquiry, and he closed 2 accounts within the hour. Dad swore under his breath. Then Daniel said something that made everyone go silent. Nicole, someone also tried to access your apartment building 30 minutes ago using your sister's guest code. I turned toward Madison. I never gave anyone my code. Madison's face emptied. Then she whispered, I did. Before anyone could respond, my phone buzzed with a notification from my security camera. Motion detected. I opened it. A man in a dark jacket stood outside my apartment door. He looked straight into the camera, then raised something in his hand. My spare key. I stared at the security feed. The man outside my apartment wore a baseball cap low over his face. He wasn't knocking. He wasn't pretending to be delivery. He held my spare key between 2 fingers, like he already knew it would work. Daniel's voice came through my phone. Nicole. I see him. Do not go home. I wasn't planning to. Call the police now. Dad was already reaching for his phone. Madison stood completely still. I looked at her. Who is he? I don't know. Try again. I said I don't know. The man inserted the key. My camera feed shook slightly as the door opened. Mom whispered, Oh my God. I turned the volume up. The camera inside my living room caught him entering. He closed the door behind him. No hesitation. No searching for lights. He knew where he was going. Straight toward my kitchen. Dad looked at Madison. You gave Julian the key? No. The guest code. Yes. Why? He said he needed access in case something went wrong. I laughed once. Something went wrong. Madison looked sick. He said if you ended up hospitalized, someone had to remove anything that could create questions. Dad stared at her. You agreed to that. I wasn't thinking. You were thinking very clearly, I said. You just thought I'd be unconscious. Her eyes filled. Nicole. Stop saying my name like that fixes anything. On the camera, the man opened my refrigerator, then the freezer, then the trash. He was looking for the cake. He didn't find it. Good. Claire had the backup sample. The lab had the primary. And Daniel had copies of every report. The man moved into my bedroom. Mom grabbed my arm. What if he finds something? He won't. What do you mean? I moved everything important yesterday. Madison looked at me. Where? I smiled. That's exactly why I'm not telling you. Her face hardened. Dad finished speaking with the police. They're sending units. Daniel said, Nicole, save the live feed. Already recording. The man came back into the living room, then stopped. He looked directly at the interior camera. For 1 second, neither of us moved. Even through a screen, it felt like he knew I was watching. Then he walked toward it. The feed went black. Mom gasped. I didn't, because the cloud recording had already saved everything. 10 minutes later, police entered my apartment. The intruder was gone. He had used the rear stairwell, but he had left something behind. A pair of disposable gloves. And my kitchen cabinets had been emptied onto the floor. The officer on the phone asked, "Ms. Reed, is anything missing?" "I don't know yet." "Hay valuables." He wasn't there for valuables. What was he looking for? I looked at Madison. Evidence. That word made her flinch again. By midnight, Daniel had arranged for me to stay somewhere else. Dad wanted me at my parents' house. I refused. Mom started crying. "Nicole, please. We can protect you here." I looked around the dining room. At Dad. At Madison. At the phone containing Julian's messages. Then at Mom. You knew Madison was using my trust as collateral. I didn't know it would go this far. That sentence is doing a lot of work. She looked hurt. I didn't apologize. Daniel met me at a hotel lobby with 2 folders. "You look terrible," he said. "Thanks." I meant tired. Still rude. That got half a smile out of him. Then he became serious. "We found something else." I sat down. "What?" The trust administrator gave us a timestamp on the inquiry. 11 days ago. Yes, but it wasn't just a phone call. My stomach tightened. What else? Someone submitted a draft petition. For incapacity. He nodded. My hands went cold. Before I was even sick. Exactly. He opened the first folder. The document named Madison as proposed temporary controller. It claimed I had a documented history of substance misuse, unstable behavior, and impaired judgment. None of it was true. Then I reached the signature page. My breath stopped. "Is that Mom's signature?" Daniel nodded. She signed as a supporting family witness. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Mom hadn't just repeated Madison's story. She had put her name on it. Before the cake. Before the hospital that never happened this time. Before anything. She knew I whispered. She may claim she believed the allegations. She never asked me. No. She signed anyway. Yes. I leaned back. Something inside me went quiet. Not broken. Finished. Daniel slid over the second folder. This is worse. I opened it. It was a life insurance policy. My name was on it. Insured Nicole Reed. Beneficiary Reed Family Holdings. Policy amount $3 million. Effective date 9 days before my birthday. I looked up. I never signed this. We know. Who did? Electronic authorization routed through an internal corporate account. Madison. Possibly. We're tracing it. I stared at the page. So if I died, the trust changed control. The company got $3 million and the fraudulent transfers stayed under my name. Daniel nodded. That creates a very convenient financial narrative. I laughed softly. I become the thief. Yes. And the unstable addict. Yes. And the dead one. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Daniel said, "Don't answer." I did anyway. "Hello." A man's voice. "Come. You're making this unnecessarily difficult." Daniel grabbed his phone and started recording. I kept my voice steady. "Julian." A pause, then a laugh. So Madison finally talked. "You broke into my apartment." "I didn't." "You sent someone." Careful with accusations. I looked at Daniel. He nodded for me to keep him talking. "What do you want?" Julian answered immediately. "The sample." "You mean the cake?" "The contaminated material." "Interesting." He didn't deny contamination. I said, "Why?" "Because your sister made a mistake." "She made several." "She wasn't supposed to let you keep it." I felt my pulse slow. You changed the dose. Silence. Then, your sister talks too much when she's scared. That's not a denial. You're cleverer than she said. Disappointed? No, irritated. Daniel wrote something on a notepad. Keep him talking. I said, was I supposed to die? Julian exhaled. The original plan was cleaner. What plan? Hospitalization, temporary incapacity, financial restructuring. And then, you were becoming a liability. To whom? To everyone. I almost laughed. You mean to you. You don't understand how much money is involved. Then explain it. You don't need an explanation. You need an exit. What does that mean? Sign control of the trust over temporarily. Withdraw the complaint against your sister. Confirm the medication was yours. Daniel's eyes widened. I said, and if I don't? Julian went quiet. Then, you saw what happened at your apartment. There it was, a threat, clean enough for him to pretend otherwise, clear enough for me. I smiled. You made a mistake. What? You think I'm still trying to survive quietly. I ended the call. Daniel stared at me. Please tell me that recorded. I held up my phone. Twice. The next morning, police took formal statements from me. Dad, Mom, and Madison. Madison cried through most of hers. Mom barely spoke. Dad looked 10 years older. I didn't feel sorry for any of them yet. At noon, Claire called. Nicole. Someone came asking about the cake. My grip tightened. Who? A man. Said he was from the bakery. Did you give him anything? Claire snorted. Please, I'm not new. Where is the sample? Locked up. Good. He left when I asked for ID. I stood. Claire, don't stay alone. I already called police. Then she added, there's something else. What? One of our outdoor cameras caught his license plate. I closed my eyes. Finally, send it to Daniel. I already did. 20 minutes later, Daniel called me back. We have the vehicle. And it's registered to Cross Capital. I smiled. Good. No. Better. What? The driver is a Cross employee. My heart started pounding. Name? Thomas Vance. I remembered the man on my apartment camera. Daniel continued. He has a record for evidence tampering. I stood by the hotel window. Can police arrest him? They're moving. And Julian? Not yet. I looked at the city below. Then we give him a reason. Daniel went quiet. What are you thinking? I smiled. Madison said Julian panics when evidence exists. Yes. So we tell him the original sample is being transferred tomorrow. To where? It doesn't matter. Daniel understood. You want him to come after it. I want him to show us exactly how far he'll go. By evening, the message was sent through Madison's phone. Simple. Nicole is moving the original cake sample tomorrow morning. Julian replied 3 minutes later. Where? Madison looked at me. Her hands were shaking. What do I say? I gave her the address Daniel and the police had approved. An evidence transfer point. Public. Watched. Controlled. Madison typed it. Julian responded. Good. Don't interfere this time. I stared at the message. Then at my sister. Tomorrow, I said, he thinks he's destroying the last piece of evidence. Madison whispered. And when he gets there? I locked my phone. He finds out it was never the last piece. At 8:40 the next morning, I was sitting in an unmarked police vehicle across from the transfer point. Daniel sat beside me. Madison was in another car with an investigator. She had agreed to cooperate, not because she had suddenly grown a conscience, because prosecutors had explained the difference between helping now and continuing to lie. At 8:57, a black SUV turned into the lot. Daniel glanced at me. That him? I checked the photo police had pulled from Cross Capital's website. Yes, Julian Cross got out alone. Expensive coat, calm expression, no sign of panic. That was his mistake. People like Julian thought calmness made them untouchable. A plainclothes officer carried a sealed evidence case toward the building entrance. Julian waited. Then his phone came out. Seconds later, another vehicle entered from the opposite side. Thomas Vance, the man from my apartment. He parked near the evidence entrance and walked toward the officer. Daniel whispered, "There." Thomas intercepted the officer. I couldn't hear the first words. Then Thomas showed him something. Fake credentials, probably. The officer shook his head. Thomas reached for the case. That was enough. Police moved in. Thomas ran. He made it maybe 30 feet. Julian didn't. He simply stood beside his SUV like none of this involved him. 2 detectives approached. Julian smiled. "Can I help you?" I watched through the windshield. One detective showed him something. Julian's smile disappeared. Daniel's phone buzzed. He read the message. They found the burner phone in Thomas's car. Connected to Julian? Looks like it. I exhaled. For the first time since waking up in my second life, my body seemed to understand that I might actually survive this. Madison's car door opened. She stepped out with the investigator. Julian saw her. His face changed. Not fear. Disgust. "You," he said. Madison stopped several feet away. "You tried to kill Nicole." Julian laughed. "And now you're pretending you weren't involved." Madison flinched. He continued, "You forged documents. You moved the money. You wanted control of the trust." "I never agreed to kill her." "No, you just agreed to drug her, frame her, and steal from her." That landed. Madison looked like she had been slapped. I got out of the car. Daniel muttered, "Nicole." "I'm fine." Julian saw me approaching. For the first time, he looked genuinely surprised. "Still here." I stopped in front of him, disappointed. He smiled again. "Your sister caused this." Madison snapped, "Don't." I looked at Julian. "You changed the dose." "You can't prove that." "The lab has the cake." "You can't prove who contaminated it." "The bakery has cameras." His expression tightened. "Thomas has your burner phone." Silence. Daniel walked up beside me. "And we have your recorded call." Julian's eyes moved to him. Daniel smiled slightly. "The one where you demanded control of Nicole's trust and referenced what happened at her apartment." Julian said nothing. A detective stepped forward. "Mr. Cross, turn around." Julian looked at Madison. "This is what happens when amateurs panic." Madison stared at him. "No." Then she looked at me. "This is what happens when you think Nicole won't fight back." I almost laughed. She still wanted a line that made her part of my victory. I didn't give her one. Police took Julian away. Thomas followed less than 10 minutes later. The evidence case they had tried to steal was empty. The real samples had never left secure storage. By afternoon, the warrants started. Cross Capital, Madison's office, company servers, my parents' home records, everything. 3 days later, Dad called me. "Madison's been formally charged." I sat at Daniel's conference table. "With what?" "Fraud, forgery, conspiracy. They're still reviewing the poisoning evidence." I said nothing. Dad continued, "Your mother may face charges too." "I know. She says she wants to see you." "No." "Nicole?" "No." He went quiet. Then, "Do you hate us?" I thought about the question. "No. That's worse." "Probably." He sighed. "I should have listened." "Yes." I kept thinking Madison needed protection, and I didn't. He had no answer. I looked at the city outside the window. I died once because everyone preferred the easier story. Dad was silent. He couldn't understand what I meant. That was okay. I continued. This time, I'm not making myself smaller, so everyone else can stay comfortable. I know. Do you? I'm starting to. That was the closest thing to an apology he could manage. I ended the call. 2 weeks later, I visited Madison. Not at home. At the county detention center. She sat across from me behind thick glass. No makeup. No perfect hair. No family audience. Just us. She picked up the phone. You came. I wanted to ask one thing. She laughed softly. Of course. I looked at her. In the hospital, if things had gone according to plan, were you going to cry? Her face changed. She didn't understand the question. What? Would you have sat beside my bed and acted devastated? Madison stared at me. Then she whispered, I never wanted you dead. You wanted me helpless. I thought I could fix everything afterward. With my money. With the trust. With my name on your fraud. She looked away. I was desperate. I leaned closer to the glass. So was I. She looked back. You just don't remember it. Madison frowned. I almost told her. About the hospital. About Mom crying. About Dad blaming me. About her holding my hand while I died. But she didn't deserve the truth of my first life. That belonged to me. Instead, I said, you asked when I started suspecting you. Her eyes narrowed. Yeah. I smiled. The second you handed me that cake. For once, Madison had nothing to say. I stood. She grabbed the phone tighter. Nicole. I paused. What happens to the trust? I looked at her. Even now, that was what she wanted to know. I almost laughed. You're no longer successor trustee. Her face went white. You changed it. Yes. To Dad. No. Mom. No. Then who? Someone who doesn't benefit from my death. I hung up. A month later, I went back to Harbor Hope. Claire met me outside. You look less haunted. High praise. She laughed, then handed me a folder. The rescue center had received my donation that morning, enough to expand their medical wing and fund food safety testing for years. Claire stared at the amount again. Nicole, this is huge. I know. Why us? I looked through the window at a three-legged mutt sleeping beside a volunteer. Because this place kept something safe when I needed it. Claire smiled. The cake. That too. She didn't ask what else I meant. My phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. Trust amendment finalized. Fraudulent transfers reversed. Your assets are secure. I read it twice, then deleted Madison's old birthday texts. One by one. Did you eat the cake yet? Delete. Don't tell me my $80 went to waste. Delete. You know I'd never hurt you, right? Delete. The last one was, you're going to regret making this bigger than it is. I stared at it for a moment, then deleted that too. She had been wrong. I didn't regret making it bigger. I regretted that in my first life, I had never made it big enough. I walked out of Harbor Hope with no cake box in my hands, no family waiting to tell me what version of the truth I was allowed to believe, and no sister standing beside my hospital bed rewriting my story. Madison had given me a cake meant to steal my future. Instead, she handed me the evidence that gave it back.